SGA has been coined as the modern day Kobe Bryant, of course due to the remarkable similarities in each of the two's play styles. So today we're going to be going back in time and giving Shai Kobe Bryant's career. But it doesn't stop there, because we're also putting Kobe in today's NBA to play out SGA's career playing for both the Clippers and the OKC Thunder, for an opportunity to prove to the world that Shai isn't on his level just yet. However, for now our tale will be starting off with SGA, as we go back in time to the 90s, where his rookie season is already well underway, and his modern day skill set was translating very well into the 90s, but there was one major problem. Just like Kobe, Shai would spend most of his first 2 seasons riding the bench for LA. And as a result, his averages over the first 2 years were far from anything special, even if he was making the best of his limited minutes on the court with some decent games. So that meant much of the Lakers' early success was out of his hands, and instead would be dependent on his MVP level teammate Shaquille O'Neal, who unfortunately wouldn't have enough to get things done by himself, losing in the playoffs in both 97 and 98. But the good news for SGA was this was the same start Bryant had in his NBA career, and he was continuing to stay on track with that legacy as he finally cracks the starting lineup in the 1999 season, and this is where he'd really begin to break out. His stats were skyrocketing, now averaging 25 points per night, scoring at will from everywhere on the court, so far living up to the shoes he's attempting to fill. And it was enough to earn him his first All-Star game appearance, as the Lakers looked like legit contenders this season, which was crucial for this sim, because if Shai is going to live out Kobe's career, he'll have 3 major goals to complete in order to overcome his legacy. And of course, he wasn't the only one with a challenge, because if we jump forward 20 years to 2019, Kobe's career in SGA shoes was starting off very similar to his competitor, even though he had the opportunity to start in this reality, and as a result will put up some great numbers as a rookie, he still had very little control over winning just yet, as the Clippers were one of the West's weaker teams, and Kobe was about to be on the move, heading to OKC in a deal moving Paul George to the Clippers, now joining a young rebuilding Thunder team with an all-time great veteran Chris Paul as his best teammate, which for Bryant may have actually been the best possible scenario for him personally, because under the mentoring of CP3 in combination of Paul's playmaking abilities opening up the floor, Kobe was flourishing and his game was beginning to develop rapidly, increasing his points per game to 25 in only his second season in the league, already showing flashes of a savvy veteran with an incredibly bright future ahead of him. So despite the fact that for the next couple years most teams would walk all over OKC, soon enough the Mamba will have chances to compete, and the 2 goals he'll be assigned to outperform SGA could be much more possible than they seem now. And soon enough, we'll see Bryant competing to complete these and more. But we'll put a pause on this for now, with only a couple seasons left in Kobe's career, because instead we'll shift our focus back to Shai, who was only getting started with his 20-year career ahead of him. But on the bright side, things were just about to start heating up. As mentioned earlier, this Lakers unit looked like legit contenders, and come to playoffs with Shai and Shaq quickly building chemistry, they were starting to make headlines with their run this year, knocking out Phoenix in a best-of-5 sweep in round 1, before moving on to face Sacramento in the second round, who will put up a bit more of a fight than Phoenix, winning 2 games, but in the end LA was just far too much for them to handle, ending this series after only 6. Meaning now, Kevin Garnett and his Wolves were the last hurdle in the way of the NBA Finals. But with the Big Diesel down in the paint scrapping with KG in his front court, there was a clear favorite in that matchup. It was impressive for Minnesota to make it this far, but they didn't have what it took just yet, with the 2-headed monster in LA being way too far ahead, winning this series easily, officially pushing SGA to his first ever finals, which just so happened to be an entire year before Kobe in real life, giving Shai an opportunity for a head start. And with their opponent being the Miami Heat, they were favorites to win this year's title. Miami's best player was Mourning, who would be clashing in the paint with Shaq for the duration of the series, but they didn't have any player that was up to par with the all-star guard SGA, who was stepping up in only year 3, ready to take on the huge moment ahead of him, elevating his game to the highest level we've seen from him yet, in the biggest moment of his young career so far, and all the hard work would pay off.
And that's it, folks. The Los Angeles Lakers have won it all. Wow!
And just like that, Shai has already gotten a head start over Kobe's legacy, adding in his first championship, starting his progress on one of his goals, and along with that, the NBA was in a frenzy of the new hottest player in basketball, but there was something that was even more impressive. I'll admit, I did not expect this to happen. Shai gets the Finals MVP over Shaq, something Kobe never did with Shaquille O'Neal as a teammate. This Lakers team could very well become the greatest basketball dynasty in the history of the sport. But that would be in jeopardy come the 2000 Conference Finals, because up against the Jazz and the Predator, things weren't exactly going the Lakers' way. Malone was dangerous, and I'm not just talking about for the local communities. He was on a tear on the court, desperate to make one more run for a ring in the end of his career, and it was actually enough to give Utah a 2-0 lead on the road. Meaning just as Shai got to the top of the mountain, he could be falling back down just as quick. Except he wasn't faltering in the face of adversity and was going into enemy territory for Game 3 with a massive performance, topped off with the highlight of the year.
4 to shoot, back to Gilgeous Alexander for the win!
So now, the Lakers were right back in this series, only trailing by 1 game, and SGA was picking up right where he left off in Game 3. Going into Game 4, scoring at will, along with Shaq, who was dominating in the paint, but it still may not be enough, because Utah was on fire from everywhere, keeping up with the Lakers scoring, and come the final moments of the game, this huge Game 4 could shift either way. We'll have to see how our star responds. SGA is in frankly not a great situation. Fresh off of a championship, he's trailing the series 2-1, down too late in Game 4 with the ball, though. John Stockton sticking him. They go to Shaq down low in the post in the clutch. They bring the double. A tough hook gets it to go to tie the game. Shaq coming up huge right there with about 100 seconds left in the game, all tied up. On the other end, Utah is going to Malone, a post fade from deep. He banks it in. That was a tough shot from Karl Malone. SGA on the other end. Can he answer that shot? They go to Shaq again. Shaq the pump and the dunk to tie right back up. We're having a back and forth affair here in the final moments. All offense, no defense. They're not slowing down. John Stockton, SGA on him, an easy pass down low, but Karl Malone blows it. Shai on the fast break. John Stockton on him. They kick it over to Rice. Rice forcing it. Rice is blocked. What is he doing? Who does Glenn Rice think he is? John Stockton now with the ball. Stockton one-on-one with SGA. Slowing it down, 57 seconds left in the ball game. They're going to Malone again. This is dangerous. Malone, the little fake, another fade. That one is off. The Lakers have an opportunity to take the lead. Harper on the break, 2 guys to beat. Is he going to force the issue? It looks like he's slowing it down. They get it over to Shai finally. John Stockton guarding him. Shai kicks it to Shaq, wide open in the paint. Shaq's leg gives him the lead. Coming out of a timeout, we'll see what Utah drew up to try to reclaim the lead here or possibly tie the game with 36 seconds left in the game. They go inbound to Hornacek. John Stockton with it now. SGA still guarding him. They're going to Malone again. I see it developing. Karl Malone in the post. The post drive, nowhere to go. He's getting bumped all around. Malone, this is a bad spot. They find Stockton. Stockton backing it up. Russell, Stockton. Again, Karl Malone to pull for the tie. What? It rattles home. Tied game. With 15 seconds in the game now, we are about to witness Shai's first opportunity for a huge moment in his career. John Stockton guarding him. 10 seconds left. He's got the whole right side to himself. They're going to Shaq in the post. The double team is coming over. Shaq wants it. Shaq's forcing it. Shaq, his lay. It's off. We're going to overtime. But the extra 5 minutes would be more of the same. It was a battle to the end for both sides, neither wanting to budge, and with the fatigue settling in, as this one continues to be close late, only the best of the best would be able to pull away. Late in the overtime period, the Lakers are still within arm's reach, but they have to score here, and they find Shaq, or at least try to on the lob. SGA off target. Shaq can't corral it. Utah with the ball now, 60 seconds left. You have to get a stop, or this is over. Malone in the paint. The easiest play I've ever seen. The Lakers ended up using a timeout, but you have to think that this one might be slipping away from them. Down by 6 with 52 seconds left. They get it inbounded to Shaq. They go to Shai again. You need a screen from Shaq and get an open three. SGA trying to find Shaq in the post yet again. They're force feeding Shaq, and Shaq gets it in. 4-point game. They're going to go for the full court press, possibly play the foul game here, but it might be early to foul. They're not fouling just yet. Hornacek trying to get it across half court. They're swinging him alone, a wide open paint. SGA tries to recover. Russell to dunk. What a meltdown by the defending champs. That defensive possession could have went a lot better in my opinion. They're trying to go to Shaq again in the post, but you can't afford to keep going for twos. You just can't. Shaq nowhere to go. Shaq has to force out the rights. A good 3-point shooter. He's off. That's gonna do it. And that major collapse would spell the start of a downward spiral for LA, with media outlets suggesting SGA was upset with Shaq not sharing the ball down the stretch, fueling the frustrations of facing elimination, and combined with the exhaustion from the extended game, the Lakers were being upset in the conference finals, and this heartbreak wasn't stopping soon. Finding themselves in a similar predicament the following season against the Sacramento Kings, eager for revenge from 2 years ago, and they were blazing hot amidst the Lakers' cold spell, dominating our star duo, making things look easy, and I was honestly shocked. I cannot believe it. SGA went from being ahead of pace of Kobe to now behind pace of Kobe, because at this point, Bryant had 2 rings this year. This is not looking good for this team. But that was all before Shai was about to have his best season of his career yet. After back-to-back letdowns, Alexander Walker was now coming out in 2002 on an elite scoring run, getting his shot off from anywhere he wanted, taking the league by storm, positioning himself as the top scorer in all of basketball, reaching a points per night total that Bryant didn't see until 2006. So once he got to the playoffs, this year was going to be a revenge tour, picking off team after team, to include the Kings who defeated him last season, and this year things felt different. It was the same level of dominance we saw in '99, and the results would do the talking, as the Lakers were advancing to the NBA Finals again, and SGA had all the reason to be confident. Not only did the Lakers only lose 1 total game in the first 3 rounds of the playoffs, but SGA is also this year's MVP. 6 years faster than Kobe was able to do it, meaning now he is making progress on his MVP goal already. And that wouldn't be the only goal he was making progress on, because with Shai as this year's MVP and Shaq as the MVP runner-up, it didn't seem like any team could stop them, and it surely wouldn't be the New Jersey Nets slowing them down anytime soon. Ending this year's final series in a sweep, finishing this postseason run with only 1 loss, and even though the Finals MVP was shipped back over to Shaq, all that mattered was the winning, which they were doing a ton of, going right back into the finals the following season, this time putting on a masterclass against the Indiana Pacers, winning their 2nd straight NBA championship with ease. And as they prepare to face their real-life opponent for the year in Detroit, SGA would have an opportunity to already clear a three-peat. So now, as this one gets underway, with all that's at stake for this single series, SGA would come out and deliver, averaging over 30 for the series and continuing to do what we've become accustomed to from him so far. And while this matchup was lopsided in Detroit's favor in real life, here in this reality, it was the complete opposite. LA was sweeping the Pistons, erasing their impressive championship from NBA history, and officially completing Shai's first goal of earning a three-peat, which paired nicely with him winning this year's Finals MVP. This three-peat may have been more dominant than even Kobe and Shaq's. The Lakers look unstoppable, but as a lot of you probably know, things are about to get much more difficult for Shai. Which of course was because Shaq was heading out to Miami. But in this reality, the reason was more so that SGA was taking all the shine, winning Finals MVPs. But Shaq doesn't have to worry about that for a while, because Shai was now in basketball purgatory with a horrendous roster built around him, despite himself being the clear-cut best player in the NBA. Over the next 3 seasons, our star would average over 30 a night every year and lead the entire league in scoring each time during that stretch. And to go along with that dominant play, he'd even be awarded his 2nd MVP during the 2006 season, which means he's officially completed that goal as well. But when your 2nd best player is Smush Parker, you can only do so much, leading to the Lakers failing to make the playoffs through 2007, which rightfully so would lead to gripes from the LA star moving forward. But on the bright side, he was at least close to completing all 3 challenges, and luckily for him, help was about to be on the way. However, before we get into that era, first let's take a look back at Kobe now in 2023, who was on an absolute heater, now in his 5th year in the league, and fully put into use his mentoring from veteran Chris Paul. So we'd see his numbers have a drastic increase from the last time we checked in on the young superstar, now nearly averaging 30 a night, which will put him in the top 5 for scoring around the league, but ultimately falls slightly short of making progress on his goal of scoring titles. But on a positive note, his team was starting to fill out, adding in some great young talent to build around him, and they'd actually end up making the playoffs, which SGA didn't do this year. And ironically, it would land him a matchup against Paul George and the Clippers, the very team that traded him a couple seasons ago. And if there's one thing we know about Kobe, it's that he's an all-time competitor, and he was gonna come out into his playoff debut with a determination for vengeance on his old team. Even with the Clippers sending multiple great defenders his way, Bryant was still scoring at an even higher clip than he did in the regular season, draining in bucket after bucket until he was coming out of this series on top. And even though this joy of winning a playoff series wasn't lasting long, as the Nuggets in round 2 were crushing OKC's hopes, it still was progress for Kobe and his team, and they would look to build on it, getting right back into the playoffs the following season, this time as the 3rd seed in the league after winning 52 games. Their young players were all beginning to blossom, and of course they were still led by their superstar Kobe Bean Bryant, lifting the Thunder up to another echelon, leading the way for them to win both rounds 1 and 2 with little issue, which would come at no surprise after a season of averaging over 30 points per night as part of the 50-40-90 club, yet it still wasn't leading the league, which means his goal of earning more scoring titles than SGA was now out of the window. Although as he enters his first conference finals, there was still hope to complete the goal for a ring. The only problem being, the player who outscored Kobe this season was his competitor on the other side of the court. And while making it to the conference finals this year was impressive, we'd get a sense of deja vu for the 2nd year in a row, being crushed by a European star halting Bryant's run short, meaning now he only has 1 season left to possibly complete his goal. Kobe comes up short yet again, still further than Shai has made it this far in real life in his career, so that's impressive. But as far as the goals, he can't get the scoring titles goal anymore, and he only has 1 season left to get the championship goal done. But before we get into his last season, we need to head back to SGA and see if he can complete his last goal, which with him only needing 2 more rings was very doable, especially when you consider that he was finally gaining some help now that the Lakers added Pau Gasol to the mix. And while this would take up some of SGA's touches, lowering his stats, it in turn meant that the Lakers had the 2nd seed in the West and looked unstoppable. But nothing was guaranteed, which was apparent come the conference finals. Up against the 1st seeded Suns, this series would start off much as you'd expect. The 2 top seeds in the West were clashing back and forth, relatively equally matched, trading blows, tying everything up after 4. But the problem for LA was the next 2 were anything but typical. Phoenix was as hot as we've ever seen a team in the playoffs. They just couldn't seem to miss anything. Nash was looking unguardable, and Amari was feasting in the paint, leading to a major upset. Phoenix was getting things done, changing history to advance to the finals, but the rest of history would look very familiar. Because come 2009, LA did in fact make it to the NBA Finals up against the Orlando Magic, and this one would be anticlimactic, with the results being nearly identical to real life, and the Lakers walking all over the Dwight Howard-led roster. But while the series was dry, the results weren't. SGA was finally winning a ring without Shaq, now putting him up to 5, matching Kobe, and only 1 short of his goal for 6. However, that last ring was going to be far from easy, facing off against the Boston Celtics super team in 2010. This may not have had the same intensity as the real-life rematch of the 2008 finals, but both sides were eager to pull this one out in the midst of a long-time rivalry between Boston and LA. The Celtics easily had more talented players, with one of the best rosters ever, but the Lakers still felt like they had enough as long as Shai was on the court. Only 1 ring away from matching Michael Jordan's 6 all-time, and he was giving his all in this series. Except he may simply not have enough to get it done, trailing in the series after 5, with the only positive being that Game 6 was in LA. So with the support of their hometown fans, the Lakers were playing one of their best games of the entire playoffs. but the unfortunate part for them was that the Celtics were also just as hot, leading us to a tight one come the final moments with our Stars championship hopes on the line. The Lakers' entire season is on the line, trailing in the finals 3-2 with 2 minutes left, up by 1. A rivalry of two-story franchises could conclude here. Shai with the ball, Ray Allen guarding him. He gets the screen from behind him. Shai, the pull-up three, quick shot, got it to go! Extends the lead to 4 late. Boston now with it on the other end. Ron Artest guarding Paul Pierce, one of the best defenders of all time. He's sticking Pierce tight. Ray Allen gets it. Shai guarding him. Ray Allen nowhere to go. Powell there for the help. Ray trying to get open. This is unusual for the Celtics. Ray handling the ball. KG at the 3. Rondo driving it in on Derek Fisher's pull up. What kind of shot was that? After Rondo made the 6-foot jumper, the Lakers have the ball again, up by 2 still. They're going to Shai in the post again. On Ray Allen. Shai, a hook shot. Shai, it's off. Ray Allen with the basketball now. A minute left in this game. Rondo going for the tie all the way. Powell is there to turn the shot. Garnett tries to tip it in. It's off. Bottom the board. Derek Fisher with it now. Huge opportunity for the Los Angeles Lakers to extend this lead with just under a minute remaining in the game. Shai yet again in the post. One-on-one with Ray Allen. The post fade to extend the lead back to 4 again. SGA keeps coming up huge here in this game. Clutch shot after clutch shot, trying to keep his team's hopes alive for this championship. Championship number 6 for him. Ray Allen off the inbound, the steal, Bynum with it. Ron Artest, what kind of play was that for the Celtics? They foul. Just a crumbling for the Celtics, and it seems kind of early to be intentionally fouling as well, but it looks like they're going for it. Bynum, maybe they were just frustrated there. They wanted to reset their defense. Powell is getting doubled. Bynum, Derek Fisher wide open. Doesn't pull the trigger to trap. They give it a Powell. They give it up to Bynum. Bynum nowhere to go. SGA with it. They're swinging the rock. They have a wide open midi out of it. And Fisher delivers. Gives the Lakers a 6-point lead. LA is now 1 stop away from ending this game and forcing a Game 7. The Celtics inbounded to Garnett. Ray Allen with the ball. They're swinging it over to Pierce. You're running out of time. They got to do something. Pierce, run a test on him. Trying to force the issue. Pierce, a horrible look. It's off, Powell forward. That's gonna do it. Meaning now both sides are suiting up for one final Game 7, which will be the first final Game 7 of Shai's career, and he was up for the challenge. Right off the tip, he was getting aggressively involved in this game, looking to have the ball in his hand and run the offense every single possession. And he was doing a great job of it, eventually pouring in 37 points in the biggest game of his career, but unfortunately, the rest of his team couldn't exactly say the same. Outside of Shai, LA was getting torched by the Celtics. They were in full control the entirety of the game, not giving up a single lead throughout, closing this one out in a double-digit blowout, leaving SGA stunned. And this could be the start of the end, because with him well into his 30s, time was catching up to him. Over the course of the rest of his career, new up-and-coming young stars would be getting the best of him in the playoffs, with the furthest he'd make it being the conference finals in 2013, after adding Dwight to the group. But still ultimately losing to OKC for the second time, which would be his last deep playoff run of his career. Because following that loss, the Lakers wouldn't be making the playoffs again for the remainder of Shai's career, wrapping this all up. And while he would fail to complete his goal of winning 6 rings, he still had a very successful career in Kobe's shoes. And you can even argue that his rendition may have been better. But before you make a decision, we still have the 2025 finals to talk about, that just so happened to feature Kobe, as he finally made that leap, and he was actually up against the same team SGA is in real life. And while we've yet to see how this one plays out in real life, in this reality, there was a clear-cut better team here, and it was the one led by our star. Kobe was averaging over 30 a night here in his first finals appearance, and even though Indiana was stealing 2 games in the series, it was still far less close than it may seem. With the Thunder winning their franchise's first championship after only 6 games, meaning Kobe has officially completed his goal of winning a ring, and all that's left is for you to decide who had more success in the other's shoes.